We're going to talk about labiaplasty. It is an aesthetic operation on female genitalia. Labiaplasty is done by trimming labia minora, the inner lips, in the cases in which they protrude through labia majora, the outer lips. Sometimes it is also performed when the two sides of the vagina are asymmetrical or are thought to be asymmetrical. This paper is an initial step of a significantly bigger project in which we are interviewing the experts who conduct the operation and also the women who have decided and who have undergone the operation. Our analysis and interviews are not completed yet. For this reason, in this paper, we are mostly concerned about how the perfect image of vaginas is created through medical text through the internet. Dr. Elizabeth Abrams, who is the co-author of this paper and the supervisor of the bigger project, is not here today, so I'm presenting that. So in this paper, we are using labiaplasty as a lens to look at the construction of fantasized female body. We are well aware of the fact that it is difficult to talk about this specific form of genital modification without talking about female genital cutting and the operations on intersex. However, because of the time constraints, I will be able to focus on labiaplasty only today. Moreover, labiaplasty is not the only surgery conducted on female genitalia, yet others like vaginoplasty, tightening the vagina, is justified more easily via health reasons. In this paper, I will first briefly talk about how the body is perceived in mainly anthropological and feminist literature, and I will trace the construction of the bodies back to colonialism and talk about the obsession with the female genitalia in the colonial era. I will then try to analyze labiaplasty and how the image of perfect is created. Social scientists, particularly anthropologists, have long been interested in how women's bodies are politically, historically, and culturally formed. There is a wide agreement in anthropological literature that the human body can be understood as a cultural text, that is, a symbolic form on which the norms and practices of a society are inscribed. From various forms of tattooing to piercing, from extreme dieting to circumcision, body has been the place which is to be perfected, appropriated, and normalized. Modifying the body has been a common practice in different cultures as well. It is not a new phenomenon. Archaeological evidence, for instance, shows that we have been modifying our bodies for 90,000, 100,000 years now. Terence Turner, for instance, in his article, The Social Skin, talks about the indigenous people of the Brazilian Amazon, the Kayapo. He focuses on the individual bodies, specifically the adornments that the Kayapo wear. He concludes that the Kayapo are trying to detach themselves from nature and they are trying to socialize through the adornments they wear. So Turner states, the external surface of the body becomes the common frontier of society. In other words, every Kayapo becomes a microcosm of the Kayapo body politic. So here Turner talks about how people get rid of the body as a natural entity and adorn it to represent a status, a rite of passage. With their lip plates and different tattoos, these bodies become the Kayapo. Before the second half of the 16th century in France, a person's body was considered distinct from the core essence of his humanity. It is only through enough education and appropriation that the gap between the self and the body could be closed, and the body could start to represent the self, as Elias suggested. This concept of a close relationship between appearance and morality was used extensively during the colonial era. These ideals, with the aid of science, helped the white West to construct themselves as superior over the others. The color of the colonized people, the shape of their genitals, the way they looked, the size of their heads, were all signs of how primitive and close to nature these people were. The obsession with the body shapes and morality led some of the people to be classified and pathologized as immoral, criminal, prostitute, and subnormal intelligence. Bodies became the markers of class distinction, race, and ethnicity. The first Europeans who went to Africa did not hesitate to bring some women back to Europe to satisfy their fellow Europeans' curiosity and scientific interest. The Hottentot Venus, an African woman from Koyukoyu tribe, was brought to London to be displayed in a museum because she was believed to be different from the British women of the era, given her large buttocks. Sarah Bartman, as she was later called, became the representation of all African women, and her supposedly different genitalia was thought to be an indication of sexual looseness of her race. Later, all African American women and lesbians and prostitutes were thought to have large clitorises and deformed labia, signifying their lack of moral values. So this image is taken from Sander Gilman's article, and at the time he claims this image is used to identify protruding labia minora, and this is called after Hottentot Venus. It is called Hottentot apron. In his book, Making the Body Beautiful, A Cultural History of Aesthetic Surgery, Sander Gilman explores aesthetic surgery and the ways in which the idea of beauty is historically constructed. He analyzes how body image is racialized, and he examines the obsession with getting rid of Oriental, Jewish, and Black characteristics of the body. According to Gilman, people undergo an aesthetic operation because they want to seem normal and to pass within the group which they wish to be identified. Even though today aesthetic surgery is a booming market and it affects both men and women, it still remains as a gendered area, and more women than men demand to change how they look. We are surrounded by the illustrations showing what is acceptable and appropriate in the society and what is not. So today aesthetic surgery has gone far beyond the visible features. Labiaplasty, the modification, correction, and beautification, as it is always advertised, of the vaginas, is becoming more popular amongst American and British women. Women who seek labiaplasty complain that they do not have normal vaginas. While articles that focus on genital variation recognize that vaginal morphology is highly variable, most medical texts portray the vagina as having a fixed form. So this image is taken from a web page which supposedly teaches women sexual anatomy, and this is the image that you can actually find. This is the image of vagina that you can actually find. If you want a little bit more detail, this is the most common image. So this is a fantasized image of a perfect vagina, and you just see this hairless. It is almost prepubescent. It is evenly pink everywhere, and the sizes are perfect, and like the sizes are all the same in every image that we found. But it is also very interesting to me to see that this image is taken from Our Bodies Ourselves. And I was kind of surprised to find this image and no variation in Our Bodies Ourselves, because Our Bodies Ourselves claim that it is a woman-friendly feminist health manual, but this was the only image that we could find. Except for the hair, it is not very different from the other images that we could find everywhere. So it is still, the sizes are perfect, and labia minora is smaller than labia majora, and the clitoris is small. But interestingly enough, in every text that we looked, we could find variations of hymen. So we could not find anything about vagina, any variations about vagina. But interestingly enough, the hymen, there were 5 different types of hymen that we could find. So we still do not know what to do with this information, but we thought it's really interesting. The only text that we could see variation was Atlas of Human Sex Anatomy, which was written by Dickinson in 1949. And Dickinson actually shows different shapes and sizes of labia minora. So these are all the shapes that he showed in 1949. But other than this, there's no variation in the texts. So this is what we could get at after looking at a lot of text and after looking at a lot of internet images and web pages. So this was supposed to be the normal variation. The research conducted with women who have got labiaplasty indicates that women mostly have aesthetic concerns while undergoing the operation. Some surgeons talk about some problems that women experience because of their protruding labia minoras. The problems include they are having problems while riding a bike, they are having problems while wearing tight jeans, but you know, men can ride bikes very easily, so it doesn't make sense to me why it should be a problem. But most doctors admit that it is mainly aesthetic, just a concern for appearance. Dr. Douglas McGeorge explains that the procedure is nothing important, and he states, essentially, this is just about removing a bit of loose flesh, leaving behind elegant-looking labia with minimum scarring. The procedures won't interfere with sexual function. So this doctor doesn't even think about it. When we talk to women, they always talk about self-confidence, and you know, they always talk about how important it is for them to look perfect. But for the doctors, it's, you know, just nothing. So this is taken from a website which advertises labiaplasty, and I think the image was so interesting to me because there is a flower instead of a vagina, and so I thought it basically says, you know, we are helping you to get rid of your smelly, ugly flesh, and we are putting a flower instead of it. Mm-hmm. And the advertisement, the text is also interesting. Like it says, "Feel feminine again." So I mean, the relationship between a nice, perfect, wrapped up vagina and femininity is also interesting to think about. So here are other images from other advertisements of labiaplasty. So these are only drawings, but as you can see on your right, these are problematic vaginas. On the top picture, it is asymmetrical, and this on the bottom, it's called butterfly wings. And on the left, you can see like the perfected images, and it is really striking, like how it looks like this image actually, the perfected image. And these are the real ones. So these are pictures before and after. So women are losing a great amount of flesh actually and tissue. So while I was doing this research, I read Playboy magazine, and there was just for research.
The articles.
Yeah, the articles. Good articles, by the way. So this specific article that I read was written by Heather Caldwell, and Heather Caldwell talked to a plastic surgeon, Dr. David Matlock. Dr. David Matlock is a pioneering figure in this plastic surgery, and he is the person who founded Laser Vaginal Regeneration Institute in Los Angeles. He's actually in Beverly Hills. And he says he makes $12 million a year through this institution by labiaplasty and vaginoplasty only. And Heather Caldwell asks him, okay, does the perfect vagina exist? And he says, yes, he believes that the perfect vaginas exist, and he actually has seen a few. And Heather Caldwell asks, okay, but isn't it like? But he also admits that most women's labia minora naturally projects beyond their labia majora. So it's a great market that he has there. I also went to sex shops and and looked for images of vagina in sex shops. And I went to 2 different sex shops in Chicago. One of them is called Early to Bed, which advertises itself like woman-friendly and feminist, lesbian friendly and guy-friendly. And the other one was Tulip. So I could only find one image of vagina, which was the flashlight. And in both sex shops, it was the same, like pink, hairless, prepubescent, and perfect. Actually, variation in vaginas exists, and this is our vagina wall. And these are all taken from before pictures, because there is no way to find variation in, in after pictures. So this is all taken from before pictures, and they're all somehow pathologized and thought to be abnormal. Labiaplasty has become another market to create homogenized standard bodies through a claim on perfect prepubescent vaginas for all women, disregarding racial and natural differences in shape and color. The booming market indicates women who can afford the procedure are alienated from their own bodies, and somewhat are convinced that their bodies deviate from the standard in an area where deviance is actually the standard. Thank you.